Hello, good evening to everybody. Good to be back with you. I missed you last week. Actually, I was away. I was in New York for a couple of days with other vintners from, actually, mainly from this area around Charlottesville. Together, we organized a great 2-day event in some really cool places, and actually was not open to the public. Those were events where we had a lot of people from the trade, from restaurants, from wine shops. So it was a good group to have a trade mission from the Blue Ridge Mountain, basically going to New York. It was a lot of fun, a bit tiring, but nevertheless I came back, and so last night I was thinking what would be the conversation with us for us tonight, and I thought to actually revisit a little bit the philosophy of our white winemaking, and also with that sustain a little bit that our philosophy, our approach, it does work. It's actually very well accepted, not just by consumer, but also from wine judges, tasters, what have you. Those that actually give ratings to wine. We get some really cool awards on Sauvignon Blanc lately, on Viognier, and on Vermentino. But going back a little bit about our philosophy of white winemaking, you have to understand that our roots are Italian when it comes to our provenance here in Virginia. We're in Virginia, but our roots when it comes to also the philosophy were Italian, still are in some cases. So since 1979, which was the first commercially available vintage for the wines of Barboursville, Chardonnay was from the very beginning produced entirely by fermenting the juice in stainless steel, and then after several months in stainless steel would be bottled without anything else happening in the evolution of the wine when it comes to malolactic fermentation or again barrel aging, which instead was very much a style of those years. In the 70s, and even more so in the 80s and the 90s, as you recall, most of Chardonnay in America to be recognized as Chardonnay needed to have a very intense aroma of oak from fermentation in the barrel. A style that I want to debate over, because some people really like it, some people they prefer fermentation without oak. It happened that for our philosophy of interpreting food and wine, or actually wine for food, in Italy we have very, very restrained use of barrel fermentation. So it was not until the early 90s actually that we started producing a little bit of Chardonnay fermented in oak barrel. We have very good followers also for that style, but the disparity in volume of production between the stainless steel fermentation and the oak fermentation, it's like this, whatever that means. I don't need to give you a number, but this makes it very obvious. And so I have to say that probably Barboursville in the beginning, in those years of really a resurrection of American wines, 80s, 90s, we may have lost some opportunities not to position a Chardonnay aged in oak, or even for that matter, other white wines aged in oak. If you remember, there was a wine produced, now it's not as much popular anymore, it was called Fumé Blanc. Fumé Blanc basically was a Sauvignon Blanc fermented in oak that had a very intense aromatic of oak. So that philosophy, what I'm saying is that we also applied it to all the other white wines that we released thereafter. In the early years, we even produced some Riesling. And so why that? Why that is really is a philosophical approach, And also, when I came, I realized that actually Virginia naturally does produce white wine, if they're grown the right way, white wine with very intense aromatic, and that's where it comes into place our red clay. Clay are notorious to produce very intense aromatics, elegant aromatics, and also produce age-worthy white wines. So we continue to pursue this approach, and with time, really, we gain so many followers, and still today, we are doing extremely well, like I said, in some wine challenges, competing with other producers that perhaps have the extra dimension from the oak aromatics. Something else also that we did when it comes to the production, the technical aspect of producing a white wine, it is into the handling of the grapes prior to fermentation. A lot of winemakers in the 80s, 90s, still some today, believe that only the best white wines are made by very gentle pressing of the skins, trying not to bruise the skins, and the last portion of the pressing of the skin, which in our slang we call press wine, with giving a little bit of a accent on that S's, like, you know, like something like it's not as worthy, like press wine. And I did start a little bit also with that aspect of, or that approach. And I realized with time, especially since Daniele has been here, Daniele Tessaro, my associate winemaker here, we were tasting some wine made with pressed wine, and we realized that actually they had a lot more aromatics, intensity, and not only, but a little bit more astringency coming from extracting some tannin, some astringency from the hard pressing. And therefore we shifted very much toward no longer separating what is the first run of juice with the press wine. And today all of our wines are produced with that approach, and actually I've seen that are getting more attention, better reviews, being more wholesome, more complex, richer, and with a little bit more of consistency. At times I have seen some tasters, perhaps some advanced tasters, that upon tasting our wines, they comment, yeah, you know, I really like the aromatics, I really like how the wine starts, but there is a little bit of phenolics in the end. That is a terminology that basically means I feel like there is a little bit of astringency, which can be a signal that some of the pressed juice is in. And I don't understand if this is just a comment sometime, perhaps to show that you can detect that. But in the end, I always ask people, when perhaps go very technical in their observation, I ask a question: do you like it? And that, to me, it's what is essential for us as winemakers, to learn not to follow some standards that have been done and mentioned so much, to believe that that's the only way to produce a great white wine. I came more and more to a conclusion, getting a bit older, that I have to believe about what I do from what I taste. And those are the great changes that I think we did here at Barboursville, following and believing in the results, not on common knowledge that is around, that doesn't apply to everything. So most recently, I gotta read it, because I don't remember all these awards we received, honestly. So we received recently, for example, Sauvignon Blanc 2020 It was in the Governor's Cup as a gold medal winner, and the Winemakers Challenge also, which is in San Diego, where there are all winemakers tasting wines, dissecting them with a very much technical approach. And Sauvignon Blanc was really at the very top of the Sauvignon Blanc category, which is a pretty important category. Sauvignon Blanc is really cool because it's a variety actually that we were growing right here, right in front of me. And actually it's now Viognier, this vineyard in front of me, but it was planted as Sauvignon Blanc in the mid-80s. And when I came to Barboursville, I tried all I knew what I was able to do. There was also even some Semillon planted within, which didn't grow very well at all. But I never made a very good Sauvignon Blanc from this vineyard. I only made a good Sauvignon Blanc. I remember in 1994 was a little cooler growing season, a little rainy, and actually was a, let's say, good to very good. Any other vintage thereafter, the wine didn't have the varietal intensity and richness. And I thought was perhaps, well, you know what, perhaps Sauvignon Blanc is not the right thing for us here in this area in Virginia. And I almost let it go completely, and I say, we're gonna pull it out, put some Viognier here. And then you heard this story before, but basically we plant a new parcel, new clones. Fernando Franco helped me to research them in New Zealand. And today we're drinking Sauvignon Blanc here that not only is fantastic, but is also age-worthy. 2020, by the way, it will be released in a couple of Sundays. The last Sunday in May, we're gonna have our friend Eli Nichol with his oysters here from Oyster Catcher Sea Farm. And hopefully with good weather, we're gonna be outside and shucking fresh oysters, and we're gonna allow Sauvignon Blanc 2020 to come out of the cellar and see some people on that Sunday. Right now we're still releasing 2019. Another great wine coming and is on the market already is the Viognier 2020. And here actually it was even more fascinating what was capable. The Viognier competing in the San Francisco Chronicle as a very big competition with thousands of wines in the challenge. And Viognier is not a big category, but it's substantial. And you receive a double gold, placing at the very top of the category. Again, here is another good example on how we interpreted Viognier away from the rest of the crowd. The crowd, mainly in the 90s on Viognier, was in California, a little bit, of course, in Virginia with Dennis Horton Vineyards. And everybody in those years was picking the Viognier very rich, very high in sugar, making very big wine, 15% alcohol, fermented in barrel, new oak barrel, oaky, rich, opulent, peachy, and not a very powerful approach, but not refreshing, not very drinkable. And from that point also, from our first vintage in 1987, I made a point to ferment it different, pick it a little earlier, age it on the lees, and with lower alcohol strength, I was able to capture a varietal expression that was floral, has also some tropical fruit, but not as much, and some citrus characters. And by the way, most recently we had a dinner here at Palladio restaurant, and 2 weekends ago. And I had some friends over. It was the morale dinner. I had some friends over that I've been picking morels with for years. They're both collectors, but drinkers, not collectors as a speculation, but drinkers of really fine Burgundies, some little bit of Bordeaux, and a lot of their cellar is, I'm so thankful, is Barolo and Barbaresco that in Biolo I so much love. So since I had them at the table, I had very few bottles left of the first vintage of Viognier from 1997. And so I brought one at the table and I decanted it. I poured it around, and they asked me, so what is it? I say, like, I'm not going to tell you. And they asked me, is this your wine? I say, no, it's not my wine. I had to, not to lie, but kind of derail them a little bit. And they smelled it, they tasted it, and they said, well, this is not California. It's an old vintage, probably Chardonnay, and it's not French. Perhaps is a great Chardonnay with quite a bit of age, some age, from a great producer in Italy. And I say, you are actually partially correct. There is an Italian imprint in this wine. It's only the winemaker. The varietal is French, and the wine is from 1997, and their jaw dropped. So why I'm saying this that look what we did in the 90s. We produced a wine totally away from the trend that was setting the standard for that varietal, using a winemaking technique and approach that made a wine aging for over 20 years. And so those are the validations, moments for a winemaker, but also for an estate that believed early on to follow an approach that was more elegant, more restrained, more drinkable, and more refreshing. So, and 2020 Viognier is now on the market. I tell people sometime, buy some, put it aside, and wait. You can wait and age it. So, and then the other wine that recently got, of course, a great award is a Vermentino 2020 vintage, which was the winner in the Governor's Cup case. It's now currently on the market. We did release, because we had to release it after we won this big award. We released it for tasting upon request. But now actually it's available on the market, it's available in our restaurant at Palladio Restaurant, in our discovery room, in our library. The only thing is that it's a shorter production in 2020. We were hit by frost. So it's a bit shorter. It will not last more than probably 5-6 months. So those that want to get some hands-on, hurry up in the next few months. Followed by 2021, which actually, in my opinion, could as well be the best vintage of Vermentino we ever produced since 2010. And remember that Vermentino was scored in the top 12 wines in the Governor's Cup 5 times. So if I say 21 is the best, you can imagine how great it is. But anyway, I can probably say a lot more things about the wines. Actually, I brought a glass with me, and it'd be a little warm now. No, the smell's actually not too warm yet. When actually wines are very warm, you can smell more alcohol evaporating. Perfect, probably 60 degrees or so. I chose to bring some Sauvignon Blanc right here when it used to be. Now is Viognier. But actually, before I let you go, let's just go in the vines and let's just look at a cluster of Viognier and see what it looks like. The grapes have not bloomed yet. You know, here they are. Viognier, never very, very fruitful. You know, some varieties, they have 2 clusters on one shoot. Viognier here, beside this is a double we take away. It's just 1 cluster here. This one has 2. This one actually has none. This has 1, this has 1. This has nothing, this has 1. Actually, this has 2. So one thing that Viognier does have is as less of a consistent number of clusters per shoot. Some varieties you can count on 2. Actually, Petit Verdot, most time you count on 4, although they're very small. And so we can actually even afford to take some down. So that's the beauty of all of these grapes. All they have their character, their imprint, and it's a matter of knowing them. It's a matter of understanding them, take care of them, and decide which cluster stays, which one goes. And so we're blessed by the weather so far this year. We escaped the frost. We got a bunch of rain last week, through the weekend, and now look at this, 70 degrees, clear sky, blue sky. You can see how the vines have been growing. If you just watch one of our videos like 2 weeks ago, the growth, it's just astounding how fast things grow. And you can see all these shoots already here in this apical meristem. It's everything already designed. If I were able to just open this, there are many leaves already right there, all programmed to take off, all programmed with these tendrils to cling and secure themselves. So this one is starting right there to curl around. Anyway, I hope you understood and feel a little bit the love we have for what we do, and I look forward to see you soon. Ciao.